Everyone ready?
I guess so.
Should we do some meditation first? Make sure we enter this with clear minds.
Can we just get going?
Deep cleansing
For fuck's
breath.
sake.
Nitro number 119, December 22nd, 1997.
A horrible show. You know how horrible the show was? Go home show for Starrcade. It was bad.
It was a very...
But you know what it proves? It proves when you got a great main event, you can have a terrible go home show. Everyone's still going to buy the stupid pay-per-view.
So they run down Starrcade for a while. We have a hype video with Eric Bischoff running down Larry Zbyszko and talking about how dangerous his feet and fists were.
Hey, good promo.
Went forever, but it was good and it had a point.
Good thing he took those 2 weeks off 2 weeks ago to train.
Yeah. Yeah, Larry missed one show in training.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Finley versus Eddie Guerrero.
This was way better till the end.
Yes, they were having a very fun back and forth match.
No, the Finlay Malenko that you liked so much last week.
Oh, I see.
This was better, except for the ending.
Having a very fun back and forth match. And then 5 minutes in, Eddie says, I'm done. And he leaves and he gets counted out and that's it. Why did they even bother?
Well, because, Vinny, they have 3 hours. Just like they do every Monday.
There was no one on this roster Eddie could have pinned going into his pay-per-view match?
Apparently not.
Did you notice the extra security around ringside?
Yeah. 3 men ran in last week, at least.
Yeah.
Should add, by the way, that there was a superplex in this match. If you have not watched the show yet, keep an eye out for the superplex that Fit Finley does on Eddie Guerrero. If you've ever wanted to know what would it look like to see a shoot superplex, it happened in this match. Eddie did not jump at all. He fucking grabbed him and lifted him up and suplexed his ass into the ring. It was awesome.
It's crazy when you see something as simple as a superplex. And in 1997, watch the crowd lose their mind over a move like that.
Yeah. When you protect moves like that, and they're not done in every match, that's a big deal. So I'm not sure what the deal was. I'm not sure what the deal was with a lot of things on this show. But at random, they were just showing all the football players and basketball players who had been on WCW shows all year. So we got a clip of Kevin Green. There you go. Had a giant Kevin Nash video package, which was the giant sitting down in a chair. And he was basically doing his impression of Liam Neeson's speech on the phone from Taken, where he's sitting and intently speaking about the threats he's going to carry out on this opponent. He insists Kevin Nash is not 7 feet tall and thus not a real giant. He's promising pain like Nash has never felt before.
Well, it's funny because Nash himself has admitted he's 6'10" on this fucking show doing commentary.
Yes.
And then WCW announces he's 7'2".
Yes.
And then the Big Show says he's not even 7 feet tall.
Yes.
And he's right. And Nash never said he was.
No.
Show's a disaster. Till the next match.
Mongo Meng.
I loved it. This was the greatest match I've ever seen this week. Let me just talk about the finish. The rest doesn't matter. This is what they actually did.
Yes.
They're having this match, and the referee's distracted, and Mongo grabs one of those big wooden chairs. And he swings this big wooden chair, and he smashes it over Meng's head, and the chair is dangling around Meng's neck like a necklace of bones, and Meng responds by firing up. And Mongo's like, shit. Here's a steel chair. And he grabs a steel chair, and he lifts it high over his head, and he smashes Meng in the head with his steel chair. And Meng just looks at him, and he fires up. And Mongo's like, shit. So he grabs him and tombstones him and pins him. That's a fucking match.
Yep.
I'm not making this up.
Yep.
That's what they decided to do.
The only thing you're skipping over, which makes it even better, is that in between hitting him with a steel chair and hitting his tombstone, Mongo paused to remove the wooden chair from Meng's head.
Yeah.
There, Meng, let me help you.
It was amazing.
I don't even know what to say.
We see so many pattern finishes nowadays.
This is not pattern.
I just loved this. I loved every bit of this. I'm going to hit you in the head. That doesn't work. I'm going to hit you in the head again. That doesn't work. All right, I'm going to hit you in the head with the earth. And it worked.
It's so wacky because Meng's a house of fire. But he's not doing anything. He's just roaring a lot. And he lets Mongo grab him and drop him on his head.
Meng has got to be his own agent for matches. There's no way they tell him what to do.
So I need to talk about this more. There's times it was a short, intense, sloppy brawl, this match. It was fun in a sloppy way. Mongo, at times, this appeared to be his very first match. I don't even know what to say about the frog splash Mang did here. Except, man, that's a big frog. And then we got the chairs and the tombstone and the win.
Once again, if you want to know why Nitro was beating Raw, it's because on Raw, I had to see DOA and 8-Ball, all these fucking teams, and on Nitro, I could watch Mang and Mongo.
Yes. They showed clips of Reggie White in the match he had against Mongo on a pay-per-view. I have never seen this match. I did not see it back then. I have not seen it back in the day. But there was a 3-second clip here of Reggie White wrestling. The worst. The worst I've ever seen. Worse than Kurgan and 8-Ball. And think about this. They had that whole match to choose clips from. That's the best they could find.
Yeah.
I need to hunt this down now.
Well, this was WCW. It's possible they weren't looking for the best. Oh, that clip sucks. Whatever. Who cares?
That's entirely possible.
Fans won't notice he's no good.
Yeah. DDP came out for a promo. He talks about Ric Flair for a while. He goes off on a spiel about how he likes Christmas. And eventually says the chance to beat Curt Hennig for the U.S. title was his Christmas present this year.
It was good. Basic Enzo Amore go-home promo.
Well, yeah. We had a giant Nash tale of the tape. And here, again, they claimed Nash was 7'1".
These idiots.
He's growing and shrinking throughout the show. La Parka and Psychosis and Silver King versus Hector Garza and Juventud Guerrera and Rey Mysterio Jr.
Now, before you talk about the match, the announcers are talking to Larry. Because Larry is going to face Eric this Sunday to determine whether or not it's going to remain Monday Nitro or if it will be NWO Nitro. And they note, without a hint of irony, Larry, we're really happy you're here working when you should be training. So Larry says, I have forgotten more about wrestling than the entire NWO knows about wrestling, and Bischoff is going to take the blunt of it. The blunt.
I missed that.
Yeah. Explain a lot here.
So, guys, we're here in this lucha match where, first of all, very early on, Hoovy tried a springboard reverse Rana and about broke his head off.
Why would you do a reverse Hurricane Rana, or try, because it failed miserably, if that's the finish?
Because it's Hoovy.
Well, that answered that.
Yeah. So, guys are flying around and it's fun, but the fans aren't really into it. And then finally Ray enters and everyone goes nuts because Ray's a superstar. And there is a dive spot that ends with Hector hitting his corkscrew plancha onto the floor onto everyone. And shortly thereafter, Ray hit a top rope reverse Rana on Silver King for the win. That was a good match. That was the best match on this night for sure.
It was a very, very fun little match. And Ray, no one in the Cruiserweight division today sticks out like Ray sticks out.
No.
Like, he stuck out amongst all of these great workers.
Yes.
Like, there were all these great luchadors, and, like, La Parka got to do some La Parka stuff, and everybody was awesome. Even Hoovy had some awesome spots in between fucking everything up. And then there's Ray. Just, like, a step above everybody else.
I think it was cool, too, because last week they had that lucha tag match, and so, hey, that was really good. It worked. Let's do it again and add more guys.
Cool.
It's perfect.
Yeah. This is actually a key point because in 2016, if you took two teams out there and put them together and they had a good match, they would just say, we'll do the exact same shit next week.
That's true.
Here, they at least added guys. It's a little different. Clips of a Nitro party that had dozens and dozens of people squeezed into a tiny room watching an even tinier TV. Chris Benoit versus Hammer.
Still no Raven. It's been like 6 weeks.
You know, this kind of made me want to see Benoit versus Kurgan.
Oh, my.
He got a hell of a match out of Hammer.
Hammer's better than Kurgan.
Dude, this was the only good match I think that Hammer ever had in his whole life.
That's true. That's one more than Kurgan.
I mean, listen, Hammer got his ass kicked for maybe 2 minutes. Benoit just beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him. And finally, Hammer's going to get the heat. His first move of the match. And it is a falling powerbomb into the buckle. And he fucks it up.
Yeah, he does.
Really bad.
Oh, he almost...
He almost dropped Benoit on his head, upside down. So they're brawling on the floor. Actually, I will say this. Benoit whipped him into the apron. Hammer took a mighty bump for that bump into the apron.
Well, it's because he almost killed him
Well, there you
minutes
go.
before.
Yeah. The Flock attacks. Eventually, Saturn hits a clothesline for the DQ, and the segment ends with Benoit prone as the Flock, well, they just surround him. Still no Raven.
Now, Tenay said the rings of Saturn were lethal.
Only if you fly into him.
I should also note is Raven Benoit Starcade. Shouldn't it be Raven Saturn? Shouldn't it be Saturn versus Benoit?
Should.
It seems that way.
Saturn's been the one that lays out Benoit every single week. You should have to go through Saturn to get to Raven.
And do Raven.
Which maybe is what they
January
did. I don't even
yeah.
remember if that's what they did at Starcade.
The Flock
but-
jumps him every week, and Saturn ends with the rings of Saturn
Yeah.
on him every week.
So
Yeah.
Benoit should have to go through Saturn to get to Raven.
I bet you that's a good match.
Oh, sure. Both of them.
You think so? After he had a good match with Hammer?
I'm almost positive.
The incredulous look on Brian's face just now. We had Jim Kelly and Bruce Smith throwing those horrible punches at Randy Savage a while back.
Why did they re-air this?
A still photo here would have been just fine. Although they were still better than Reggie White. So after the break, the NWO has begun to take over the announce desk. And that is when we realized, oh no.
Now listen, I'm not going to lie. If you add in commercials, they spent 20 minutes redesigning the set. Can you imagine? Now, I'm actually going to say something positive about this. Rick Rude
Okay.
was there as foreman.
It's funny because it's true.
This fucking guy was walking around and commanding everybody to put on NWO t-shirts. I was in my room seeing if I had one. I was scared shitless. Scott Norton is out there trying to intimidate guys, and I'm like, this is phony. Like, Rick Rude. I was looking through the Observer report of this show. Dave was so not a fan of Rick Rude on commentary. He was so wrong. Rick Rude was the star of this show. Rick Rude running around and telling all these guys to run that pyro and put this shirt on. He's just commanding everybody to do all of this stuff. And then he was so good on commentary. I thought he was great on this show. And I also realized, you know, when the NWO is doing something, and every now and then there's the NWO announcer's voice comes in, new world order or whatever. And then there's a fella who laughs. It's fucking Itchweed.
It might be.
Next time, I want you to listen. You'll never not be able to see Itchweed's face when you hear that guy laughing. Now I know where you got it. That's the only good thing about this. 20 minutes of hell.
Yeah, we had... Let me tell you what it was like watching this on the network. This, I forget if I said this already. I missed this when it first happened, but boy, did I hear about it. For years. This is actually the first time I've ever actually watched the episode start to finish. And the last, I will add. So, there is 12 minutes of TV time. Now, as Brian noted, when you there were 2 commercial breaks in there, so that takes it to 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes of no announcers, no narration, no little crawler across the screen to see what's going on. It's just ambient arena noise, which is often Rick Rude yelling at people. Sometimes it's Buff Bagwell cackling. Sometimes it's Vincent not doing anything. They're just out there. They're putting shirts on guys. Conan goes to the production truck to make sure the AV crew gets suitably harassed. They're putting banners all over the place. They're taking down... They took down this big, huge chrome WCW letters on the stage. They lowered stuff from the ceiling.
It's funny, when they were taking the WCW, like the steel-plated WCW sign down, the guy was using a grinder, and he had a pipe in one hand, and he had the grinder in the other, and it was just making sparks. He wasn't actually cutting into the...
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Craig wanted to share his lingo.
Well,
Which is cool. So, the weird thing is, in a strange way, I won't say I like this, but I've seen a lot of stuff I hated more. Many of it on Raw on the same night. There was something kind of peaceful about this nothing happening for a while. It did not last, this feeling I had of peace. So, the payoff for all this is that first, nothing happens for a while. Then Eric Bischoff comes out on a motorcycle that looks way too big for him. He cuts a promo. He calls out the entire NWO, and they come out slowly.
By the way, where were all the rest of the WCW wrestlers while this was all going on?
Well, as we'll get to here, apparently they hadn't arrived yet.
Yeah, they were showing up late. Maybe that was Bischoff's plan.
They're so committed to this
He called all
go-home show.
the WCW guys and said, we're starting an hour late.
Called all the Uber drivers and said, take the long way.
Just hang out.
So they walk, and they mosey, and they saunter, and they stroll, and they get in the ring, and it is time to give Christmas presents to Hulk Hogan. The first present was this show. I'd have punched Eric right in the face. They begin to drop flyers from the ceiling that read, Merry Christmas, Hollywood. They presented a motorcycle.
2.
They presented a second motorcycle. They bring out a stretch limo complete with hot girls soaking their feet in a hot tub in the back.
A heart-shaped hot tub, by the way.
That's correct.
At which point Hogan said, ho, ho, ho.
See what he did there?
That's what he said.
Yeah.
There's only 2 girls, though.
That was apparently like a shocking line in 1997.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure that was
Can you
full of
believe
scandal.
Hulk Hogan said ho, ho, ho when the chicks came out. Man, the Hulkster.
And that was the most offensive thing Hulk Hogan ever said.
Edgy.
Somewhere in here, by the way, Eric Bischoff randomly announces, okay, let's go 3 hours. No. So they go to commercial break. Then Rick Steiner and Ted DiBiase are shown arriving at the building. We're like 90 minutes into Nitro at this point. Where the hell have you two been? JJ says, I do not blame you if you want to take the night off. There will be no repercussions because JJ's lost all control. They said they would go out anywhere. So we got Rick Steiner versus Scott Norton. Bischoff, Rude, and Nash doing commentary. From the end of the Lucha match to this one, on the network, we went 26 minutes with no wrestling. When you put in the commercial breaks, it had to be about 45. So Norton and Rick had a terrible match. Rude was awesome. Here he was awesome. He was going off about how Sting had broken his neck in Japan and ended his career and deserved payback from Hogan at Starrcade. Bischoff asks Nash, what do you want for Christmas? And Nash replies, a great big bag of money. I also want this, if any of you are still shopping. Send me a great big bag of money. Rick goes for a avalanche belly-to-belly. This may have been worse than the side slam Kurgan did.
Pretty sure this was his, wait, which one?
Norton and Rick Steiner?
I know, but what spot?
The belly-to-belly.
Off the middle rope?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure this was his receipt.
Absolutely.
I see.
See, just think about these Steiners. Like, Norton he didn't have his feet on the outside of the ropes. He had his feet on the inside. Like he was sitting on the top rope. So his feet were inside the ring. Rick climbed up so his feet were also on the inside. So there's no possible way, because his feet are going to get caught on the ropes, that Norton can actually flip out of this. And Rick just threw him anyway. Fucking just dropped the dude right on his shoulder and his back. What a car wreck.
Yeah, these two need to never wrestle each other again. Eventually someone will die. Anyway, NWO ran in for the DQ. Scott Steiner and Ray Traylor made the save. It was an awful match. We had clips of Dennis Rodman wrestling. We had Nash.
I'd like to add one thing about the Rick versus Norton match. When the NWO came down, and then the babyfaces came down to save the day, Ray Traylor's down there. They're running off the NWO. And as the NWO is running away, Ted DiBiase sees Virgil. And he kicks him right in the ass. I laughed.
Just for old time's sake.
Yep.
Probably not the first time that happened.
So they just had clips of Rodman wrestling. Nash ran down Giant for a while. Curt Hennig versus Disco Inferno. First of all, I love that Curt Hennig signs with WCW. I'm sure it was a ton of money. And they said, we're putting you in the NWO. He said, great, I'll be a top guy out of the gate. And they said, well, we need to get a black and white singlet. And he said, fuck you, I'm wrestling in teal. That was it. He was the only guy in the NWO who did not wrestle in black and white.
This was a 6-minute squash match.
Yeah. And Disco's the TV champion.
And it felt like 6 hours.
You know what I did love about this is Hennig beats his ass with a look of utter disgust on his face. That he's in there with this man that has shake your ass on his booty. I was watching
Something
it.
like that.
Whatever it says, shake your booty on his ass?
Shake your booty on his ass, yes.
Okay. Well, it's the same fucking thing, Craig, obviously. But anyway, I was watching it and I thought, Hennig is a badass. You know who else is a badass? His buddy Rick Rude. I thought, can you imagine that in the whole history of wrestling, they were never a regular tag team?
Yeah, best friends.
Can you imagine what an awesome tag team Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude would have been together?
Perfectly rude.
Oh,
nice.
man.
Ravishing perfection.
Ooh, I like that.
I was so sad watching the show. Rick Rude's on commentary. He's so great. And, like, is dead 2 years later.
Yeah.
God. It sucks. He was awesome. I'm such a fan of Rick Rude now.
Between this and his 1980s stuff on the Saturday nights I was watching.
And I
he's
didn't appreciate
so
him
awesome.
enough when I was young because I was such a Warrior fan. So I was always just happy to see Warrior beat Rick Rude's ass.
Well, the other thing, and I could be wrong on this if I went back and watched some of his WWF stuff. In WWF, they made him a narcissist.
Yes.
He was a pretty boy. In these two shows, while he has a phenomenal physique, he's mostly just a badass.
Yeah.
He's mostly into beating the fuck out of people.
He's like, if you don't let off that pyro, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And you're like, where's the button?
It's funny, too, because he wears a suit and everything, and you're still frightened of him. You don't have any clue as to what his physique is.
Because he's got a badass tough guy face.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know how he pulled off that mustache. It's like, he pulled it off.
Yeah.
I'm not making one comment about his mustache.
No.
And he had a voice. He had a great heel voice.
He had an air of gravity about him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like he's half Braun Strowman size and 80 times scarier.
Yep.
So Bobby Heenan comes out to the desk. And he begins to suck up to Bischoff because he wants a job. Says, you are the number one promoter in wrestling. This is the top organization. You're the kind of person I need to work for. And eventually they agreed to let him take Kevin Nash's
Called
spot.
Eric Bischoff the Donald Trump of wrestling.
I was going to bring that up.
What he called him that?
He called him, you are the Donald Trump of wrestling. And coincidentally, everyone, WCW is dead 4 years later. I'm just saying. So eventually they agreed to let him take Nash's spot. And Nash was like, I'll take the night off, whatever. Didn't have to twist his arm.
That guy was useless. He was useless on commentary. Was he not?
Maybe he knew it was coming. He didn't want to watch anymore.
I think he was asleep.
He was not Rick Rude. There was like one good line.
Or he was afraid to say something and make Rude mad.
That's possible too. Okay. Harlem Heat versus Lodi and Riggs. One of the few highlights in this show were the white guys and Cosby splitters dancing to Harlem Heat's music. So, this was fucking atrocious. Just an appalling match. They beat up Riggs for a while, but at least he was competent, so they gave him some stuff. And they tagged in Lodi, and Lodi sucks, and everyone knows it. They beat the hell out of him for several minutes. Riggs got bored and left. Days went by. They had 1,000 moves in a row. Eventually, they won with the elevated sidekick, which apparently, according to these little buttons on the network thing, the Big Apple Blast.
You have bubbles on your thing?
Yeah.
You know, the timeline goes by and you can click on where it's the start of the match, the end of it.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, the Big Apple Blast is what they called the finish to this.
Wow. I watched it on the iPad. It doesn't have that.
It might not there.
I'm going to say one thing about this. So this show is absolutely sucking. And I'm not saying that this match didn't suck, because it really ended up sucking. And when it was over, I wrote, this show sucks.
This was a 7-minute squash match.
But when they got rid of Nash, and they replaced him with Bobby Heenan, and then they got rid of Eric, and they replaced him with Mike Tenay, and we had 3 announcers who actually were talking about the show and the matches, fucking totally turned around. It is amazing when you have commentators that are competent. They make the show better.
Let me write that down.
It's funny, too.
You
because
should, because it's a mystery in WWE today.
After the match was over, Bobby gets the mic. He says, Mr. Rude, can I handle the replay on this? As per mission.
He was out there sucking up to and being afraid of the NWO, and he never forgot that. There's no point where he talked over them.
Because he was a professional.
Yeah. He never talked over them. He was never... He always made it clear he was significantly below their level.
Another thing that was great is Tenay's there, and so they start talking about the Starrcade card. Start talking about Hogan versus Sting. Sting is a trigger word for Rick Rude.
Yes.
Rick Rude is so angry that Sting broke his neck and put him in a recliner, where he says, and I quote, "My poor wife had to look at my face for a year." He is livid, steaming mad, and he lets us all know if he ever gets his hands on Sting, there's trouble to be had.
It was great.
I thought, if I were Sting, I am not coming down from these rafters.
It's so great. He started off talking about how the key is when it happened, he was the world champion and on the top of his career. Then it was over in an instant because of Sting.
God, he was great.
Chris Jericho versus Buff Bagwell. Hey, Jericho tried so hard because these fans never recovered. I know it's hard to believe that a 45-minute intermission in a 3-hour show would kill the crowd, but it killed the crowd. And then we got, another half hour of just straight squashes. They were dead, and there was no getting them back, but Jericho tried so hard to get them back into this match. Failed, but tried.
It's a great finish on this one.
This finish was awesome, actually, yes. So it's a Nitro match. It's fine. Jericho's making his comeback. He goes for a top rope Rana, but Bagwell shoves him down. So Jericho flips and lands on his feet. And Bagwell immediately pops up, jumps and flips, and he's flipping the same direction, so it looked cool. And he hits the blockbuster and gets the win. That was cool.
And then he beat up the ref.
No reason.
Accusations of bi-ass is what it was.
So remember, like 40 minutes ago, when the NWO came out for the whole gang came out for a promo.
Yep.
The NWO came out for a promo.
Again.
This was where I gave up. This show. This is one of the worst wrestling TV episodes I have ever seen.
You know what, though, Vinny? Let me somewhat defend this. Now, don't get me wrong. I also was ready to turn off the show. But the one thing that I will say about WCW is I could at least see what they thought they were trying to do. And what they were trying to do here was, when this segment was over, as a fan, you were supposed to be praying that Larry Zbyszko would beat Eric Bischoff so we never had to see NWO Nitro again. And you were supposed to be praying that Sting would beat Hogan and end his title reign. That was the idea, and it wasn't bad on paper, but it was complete overkill because the goddamn show was 3 hours long and they came out over and over and over and over again. There was a method to this madness, but they just went way over the line. I was so sick of this show at this point. And not in like a good way. Like, I can't wait till Starrcade. It was like, I can't wait to never watch this show again.
So they had more presents for Hogan, a big shiny ring. They had a huge mock-up of his 1980s Sports Illustrated cover they lowered from the ceiling. They showed Thunderlips choking Rocky Balboa. Here, Hulk, here's the last good movie you made 15 years ago. It went on for a while, and went to commercial, and that was it.
I really would have liked it if they would have had a Escape from Devil's Mountain promo or something, a poster come down from the ceiling.
Three
ninjas on Devil's Island or whatever the fuck it was.
It's amazing, too. When you saw the banners, you could actually see that people were still in the stands.
That is astonishing.
Exactly.
Actually, it's been like an hour at this point since the show had just gone deep off a cliff.
It's hard to drive off people that bought a ticket, you know what I mean? I mean, it happens sometimes, but it's much different watching on TV for free when there's other channels.
There's basically two kinds of people for sporting events, and this qualifies. There's people who say, I don't care what's going on, how close or exciting it is, I'm not getting caught in traffic, I'm leaving 15 minutes early. And there's people who say, I don't care how terrible this is, I paid my ticket, I'm going to get every minute out of this. And this apparently was all the latter group.
Unless it's the home team and they're getting killed.
And there's still people who will say, I paid my money, I'm not going to leave. Anyway, let's see. Randy Savage, the limo left. Important note. Randy Savage versus Lex Luger. Savage came out and dedicated the match to the Hulkster. They had a lame match. Luger takes out the ref. NWO runs out and attacks Lex. He gets powerbombed and elbow dropped.
Rick Rude. When the ref gets bumped, Rude is just demanding a DQ. And Mike Tenay tries to calmly say, it was an accident. And Rude just goes off. That's not an accident. Of course that should be a D. He's freaking out. Save this match for me.
The other great thing Rude did, it was several matches ago, but I remember it now. He was so good at and it's an old school wrestling announcer thing. You just throw out some bullshit, but it sounds like you know what you're talking about and making an observation. Stevie Ray's looks like he's slimmed up. He's much quicker. Yeah, it's Stevie Ray.
He's as fat as slow as ever.
Yes. So, yeah, Lex gets powerbombed and elbow dropped, and they roll the ref back in to count 3. As God is my witness, Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan came back out.
I want you all to listen to Vinny recap. This was the final angle before Starrcade. I'm sure that you can probably imagine things like, oh man, remember when the guy came out in the Sting mask? And he thought it was a fake Sting, but then he took his mask off and it was the real Sting and he beat up the whole NWO. Man, that was cool. Remember this, remember that. Let's recap what happened here in this go-home angle for Starrcade, the biggest pay-per-view of all time in WCW.
So Hogan and Bischoff are running their mouths. A final present for the Hulkster arrives. He's very excited to see this package. Eric is like, well, Hulk, that's not for me. That must be from Scott or Kevin or something. Hulk takes the package. At exactly this point, because it's WCW, the limo pulls back in and Bret Hart's hanging out with women. And he abandons them to go walk up the aisle and smile at Hulk. And this is going on at the exact same time Hulk opens the package. So not that it was going to be any good anyway, but it was as bad as it possibly could have been.
Yeah, you missed the opening.
Yeah, the actual reveal you missed. So this essentially was the end of 7, as done in WCW. Hulk Hogan opens the box and finds his own head.
I don't know if I've ever used this term on the show, but I did a spit take. Hogan is in the ring with a package, and I couldn't remember what was in it. I thought, must be a Sting mask.
That's exactly what I thought it was going to be, too, yes.
And they cut to Bret Hart, and Bret Hart is walking down the aisle in his leather jacket, and for some reason, as he's walking, he has to open it up a little more, so it's kind of falling off his shoulders.
Right.
Like,
That's
he's
a
his
Bret
own
Hart move.
prom date.
Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden, they cut from Bret Hart, and Hulk Hogan's looking at his own head.
Yeah.
And I fucking spit with laughter. I'm like, what the fuck? His own head? What?
So there's this Hulk head in the box, and the Hulk head is posed with a screaming face.
Yeah.
And the real Hulkster is also screaming, "Oh no," he says, "it's my head."
He's selling for his own head.
Right.
He's never been so scared in his life. And he's screaming and looking around, and he's turning the head back and forth, so it's screaming and looking around. And I don't want to alarm you. I don't know how many 7,000, 8,000 people were there. None of them thought this was cool.
You
No.
don't say.
Not one person. So what you've got is Hulk Hogan screaming. He's the only person in this whole arena making any noise.
Now, if the Hulk head had looked at Hogan, and then out of its mouth came Hulk's arm to point at the Hulkster,
Something like that.
that'd have been cool.
Yes.
Didn't happen. They found something much cooler to end the show with.
Well, so the announcers aren't saying anything. The fans aren't saying anything. Hulk is screaming at his head. This was so cringeworthy. I felt bad for the Hulkster here. So Brett smiles, and then behind Brett, up on top of the stage, way back yonder, is Sting with a zipline.
Excuse me?
Sting with a zipline.
A zip line?
Yes. So Hogan is now scared more because now he has to deal with not only his own head, but Sting.
He's slowly coming at me.
Sting. I've never done a zip line. The closest I've done is watching the South Park episode where they went ziplining, where Cartman goes on a zip line. It takes about 3 minutes to get to the end, and they say, "Was it cool?" And he says, "No, dude, it's hella lame." So Sting goes on the zip line. He's rolling. I can't say he was actually getting farther away from the ring, but at times it did not appear he was getting any closer. Hogan is screaming and screaming and screaming.
Because he's trapped.
Because he's trapped in the ring.
Trapped in a fucking 18-foot ring.
Sting finally gets close enough to the ring that he has to lift his feet to go over the ropes. Doesn't cross over them yet.
No.
He just lifts his feet. Hogan begins to dive for the side of the ring when he remembers there's no cage here.
Sting could have walked to the ring quicker than this zipline took him.
An actual scorpion would have made the trip faster. Sting lifts his legs to get over the rope. Hogan begins to dive towards the rope. The screen fades to black. That is the go-home moment.
That's the end.
My jaw hung open. What have I just seen?
Sting came to the ring on a zip line. This man's been falling from the ceiling
Right.
week after week after week after week. And the go-home angle is he comes down on a zip line. And I don't know if you remember this or not. I could be wrong here, but I'm 99.9% positive that I'm right. At Starrcade, he just walks down the aisle.
Yeah. They play a video and he comes out in his coat and bat.
Unbelievable.
Dude,
Even
a fucking zip line.
even their dumb video game, which had a Royal Rumble mode for some reason, when Sting came out with the Rumble, he didn't come out from the back, he descended from the ceiling. Because it was cool.
That's how the show ended.
Bloom was off the ropes.
And they still... You know, a moment ago I said it was the biggest pay-per-view that WCW had ever done, which is a fact. But, if I recall correctly, that was the biggest pay-per-view anyone had ever done up to that point.
Pretty sure.
Off this.
Well, no, off of what they'd done for the prior 18 months.
Well, yeah.
But yes, off this.
Just so wacky. That was it. Next week, I think we should watch the match.
Hogan Sting?
Just watch Hogan Sting. Everybody wants us to watch it. To marvel. So we'll watch that and we'll do the report next week. Hey, listen. It's Wednesday here. Christmas is right around the corner. If you overnight your gift, it will probably get here in time for the Christmas show. Figure 4 Weekly, P.O. Box 426, Woodinville, Washington 98072. That is P.O. Box 426, Woodinville, Washington 98072. I don't know if you two looked in the back of my car.
No.
We've been inundated. Inundated?
Inundated.
No.
Maybe
you have been
actually,
inundated.
I think we've been inundated. We've been inundated with presents.
That's Vinny's high school years.
There's going to be a lot
now?
of
Undated.
Oh, yeah.
inundated.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be opening some packages on the
Wait,
Christmas show, Vinny.
Hold up. Loneliness ain't so bad.
So anyway, get those in, everybody. And that is it from here. Back on Thursday. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Bye.